My name is Emily. I am 21 years old, and I am speaking to you from Texas, USA. Before I begin, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss any of my upcoming interesting stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know. Now, let me take you straight into the most shocking part of my life. I was the only daughter my mother gave birth to, and she raised me with all the love in her heart. But my father treated me like I was not his responsibility. He would look at me with cold eyes, as though I didn't belong to him. Sometimes, he even told people in the neighborhood that I was only my mother's child, not his. Those words broke me in ways I cannot explain. One day, it reached the peak. My father returned home angry after losing money in his business. He shouted at everyone in the house, but when his eyes landed on me, he exploded like a storm. He said loudly, "This girl is not my responsibility. I never wanted her." My mother tried to defend me, but he pushed her aside. I stood frozen, my heart racing, my hands shaking. At that moment, I felt like the ground had been taken away from beneath my feet. How could my own father deny me so openly? Tears rolled down my face, but he didn't even care. Instead, he stormed out, leaving silence and pain behind him. That was the day I realized my life would never be normal again. But how did we get to that moment? Let me take you back, so you can understand the whole story. From the time I was little, I noticed my father's coldness toward me. He treated my brothers differently. He would buy them toys, take them out for meals, and praise them whenever they did something small. But with me, he acted as though I was invisible. If I ever asked him for anything, he would snap at me and say, "Go to your mother. She's the one that wanted you." At first, I thought maybe I had done something wrong, maybe I wasn't good enough. But as I grew older, I realized it wasn't about me, it was about him. Still, the pain never stopped hurting. I remember one birthday when I turned 10. My mother baked me a small cake with her own hands, smiling as she sang "Happy Birthday" to me. But my father didn't even say a word. He didn't look at me, didn't wish me, and when my brothers ate the cake, he scolded me for being spoiled. That night, I cried myself to sleep, wondering why my existence felt like a punishment to him. But my mother, oh, my mother was my light. She shielded me from his harsh words, she reminded me I was precious, and she worked day and night just to give me the things he refused to provide. She was both a mother and a father to me, even though she suffered for it. As I grew into a teenager, things only got worse. My father became more open in his rejection of me. He would introduce my brothers proudly to his friends but never once mentioned me. If I walked into the room when he was with guests, he would act like I was invisible, or sometimes, he would order me to leave. And then one day, the most painful thing happened. I overheard him telling someone on the phone, "That girl is not my child. She's her mother's burden, not mine." My chest tightened, my ears rang, and I ran to my room, unable to breathe. I felt like my whole world had ended. But I told myself I would not give up. If he refused to see me as his daughter, I would prove my worth through my own strength. My mother encouraged me to study hard, to believe in myself, and to dream beyond the pain. Still, I could not escape the reality of living in the same house with a man who despised me. Every day was a battle of emotions, every night a silent prayer for strength. And then came the breaking point, the day he stood in the middle of the living room and denied me before my mother. His voice thundered through the walls, his words stabbing me like knives, "This girl is not my responsibility." My mother shouted back, my brothers watched in silence, and I stood frozen, broken, and lost. But what happened after that will shock you even more. Because in that very moment, when my father stormed out of the house, my mother turned to me with tears in her eyes and said something that changed everything. "My name is Emily. I am 21 years old, and I am speaking to you from Texas, USA. Before I continue, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss any of my upcoming interesting stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know. Now, let's pick up exactly where we left off. The moment my father stormed out, the door slammed so hard that the walls shook. My mother turned to me with tears in her eyes, and her lips trembled as though she had been holding back something for years. She took my hand, squeezed it tightly, and whispered, "Emily, there's something I must tell you before it's too late." My heart skipped a beat. I could feel the seriousness in her voice. Her eyes were filled with both fear and love, and I froze in place, afraid of what I was about to hear. "Your father, he never wanted a daughter," she said softly, her words cutting through me like a knife. "From the day you were born, he rejected you. He only stayed because I begged him not to abandon us." "But Emily," she paused, her tears falling onto my hand, "I swore to myself I would protect you no matter what. Because you are my pride, my treasure, my only daughter." Her words were like both a comfort and a wound. I hugged her tightly, feeling her body shake as she cried. At that moment, I understood that my mother had been carrying the pain of his rejection just as much as I had. She had been fighting a silent war on my behalf. But deep inside me, another question began to rise: why did my father despise me so much? Was it just because I was a girl? Or was there something deeper, something my mother wasn't telling me? The days that followed were filled with tension. My father avoided me more than ever. If I walked into the kitchen, he walked out. If I sat in the living room, he switched off the TV and left. He treated me like air, like a shadow that didn't exist. But my mother tried to keep me strong. She would remind me to focus on my studies, to dream big, and to never let his hatred define me. I clung to her words like a lifeline. Then one evening, something happened that made everything worse. I had been studying in my room when I heard loud voices downstairs. I crept down the stairs quietly and saw my father arguing with my mother. He was shouting at her, "I told you before, I will not waste my money on that girl. She is not my responsibility." I felt my chest tighten as I listened. My mother, with all her courage, stood up to him. She shouted back, "She is your daughter, whether you like it or not. And one day, she will prove you wrong." My father's face turned red with anger. He lifted his hand, as if ready to strike her. My heart stopped. I gasped so loudly that both of them turned toward me. My mother ran to shield me, while my father's eyes burned with fury. For a second, I thought he was going to hit me. I could see his hand trembling, his jaw tight, his anger like fire. I held my breath, my knees shaking. And then, he dropped his hand, turned around, and stormed out again, slamming the door so hard the glass rattled. I stood frozen, my chest pounding. My mother hugged me tightly, whispering, "Don't be afraid, Emily. Don't let him break you." But in my heart, fear and anger grew stronger. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept asking myself, why was my father so cruel? Why did he reject me so openly? Was it really because I was a girl? Or was there a secret my mother was still hiding from me? I didn't know the answer. But one thing I did know: the pain of being treated like nothing by your own father is a wound that never stops bleeding. And just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, an incident happened the next day that changed everything. Because when I woke up in the morning and went downstairs, I found my father sitting at the table with a strange look on his face. He didn't shout, he didn't ignore me. Instead, he looked at me in silence, his eyes dark, his jaw tight. Then, without warning, he spoke the most chilling words I had ever heard. "Emily, you are not my daughter." My whole world shattered in that moment. My name is Emily. I am 21 years old, and I am speaking to you from Texas, USA. Before I continue, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss any of my upcoming interesting stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know. Now, let's go back to where we stopped. When my father looked me in the eye and said, "Emily, you are not my daughter," my entire world froze. It was as if the air had been stolen from my lungs. My hands trembled, and I felt my legs weaken beneath me. I stared at him, my lips parting but no sound coming out. What do you mean? I managed to whisper. My mother's face turned pale instantly. She jumped up from her chair and shouted, "Stop it, James. Don't you dare say another word." But my father slammed his fist on the table, his voice booming. "No. She has to know the truth. She is not mine, and she never will be." The words sliced through me like sharp blades. My chest burned, my head spun, and I felt tears rising uncontrollably. I turned to my mother, desperate for her to say something, anything that would prove him wrong. "Mom, please, tell me it's not true," I begged, my voice breaking. My mother's eyes filled with tears, and in that silence, I knew there was something she had been hiding. Something she never wanted me to know. "Emily, listen to me," she said, her voice trembling. "You are my daughter. My flesh, my blood. That is all that matters." But I wasn't satisfied. My father smirked bitterly, his words dripping with venom. "You can tell her whatever lies you want, but deep down she knows why I never accepted her. She is not mine. She never was." The room spun around me. I felt my knees buckle, and I grabbed the chair beside me to stop myself from falling. My heart pounded so loud I could hear it in my ears. "Mom," I cried out, "please, tell me the truth. Am I really his daughter or not?" My mother held my face in her trembling hands. "Emily, you are my everything. Don't let his hatred destroy you. No matter what he says, you are mine, and I will always love you." Her words gave me some comfort, but deep inside me, questions screamed louder than ever. Why would my father deny me so strongly if there wasn't something behind it? Why would my mother avoid giving me a direct answer? That night, I locked myself in my room, unable to eat or sleep. My tears soaked my pillow as I replayed his words in my mind, "You are not my daughter." I started to notice things I had never paid attention to before. My eyes didn't look like his, my smile wasn't like his, and my skin tone was slightly different from my brother's. Was he right all along? Was I living in a lie? The next morning, I decided I couldn't stay in the dark any longer. I confronted my mother again. "Mom, please. I need the truth. Who am I really? Is he my father?" She looked at me with tired eyes, her lips trembling. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she whispered, "Emily, there are things about the past you are not ready to hear." I felt anger boil inside me. "I am ready, Mom. I deserve to know. If he is not my father, then who is?" She burst into tears, covering her face with her hands. "Please, Emily, not now. Not like this." I was left standing there, broken, angry, and more confused than ever. But life has a way of forcing the truth out, even when you're not ready. Because only a few days later, something happened that changed everything. A letter arrived at our doorstep. A letter addressed to my mother, but with my name written boldly inside it. And when I opened that letter, I discovered something that nearly stopped my heart. My name is Emily. I am 21 years old, and I am speaking to you from Texas, USA. Before I continue, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss any of my upcoming interesting stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know. Now, let's pick it up from where we stopped. When the letter came that morning, I didn't think much of it. But when my mother took it from the postman, I noticed her hand shake as she read the name written on the envelope. What startled me even more was that my own name, Emily Johnson, was written clearly on the front, but in handwriting I had never seen before. "Mom, who is it from?" I asked. She quickly hid it behind her back. "It's nothing, Emily. Just a mistake." But my heart told me otherwise. "Then why does it have my name on it?" I pressed. Before she could answer, my father walked into the room. His eyes narrowed at the sight of the letter. "Give it to me," he demanded, his voice sharp. My mother's grip tightened on the paper, and in that moment, I saw the fear in her eyes. She shook her head. No, James. Not this one. I stood frozen, my chest pounding. Something about this letter was different, dangerous even. My father lunged forward, trying to snatch it, but my mother ran past him and handed it straight to me. Emily, she whispered urgently, read it. You deserve to know the truth. My hands trembled as I tore open the envelope. Inside was a folded piece of paper, yellowed at the edges, like it had been hidden away for years. I unfolded it slowly, my eyes scanning the words. To my beloved daughter Emily. If you are reading this, then the truth has finally reached you. You were born out of love, but not from the man you call father. Your real father's name is Richard. He never stopped loving you, but circumstances kept him away. I pray one day you will forgive me for the pain this secret has caused. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the letter. My breath caught in my throat, and I looked up at my mother in shock. Mom, is this true? Is Richard my real father? Her face crumbled, tears streaming down her cheeks. She reached for me, whispering, Emily. I didn't want you to find out like this. Yes, Richard is your real father. The ground beneath me seemed to collapse. My father's anger, his rejection, his cruelty, it all made sense now. He had known the truth all along. I turned toward him, my chest heaving. His eyes burned with fury as he shouted, I told you. She's not mine. She never was. He stormed out of the room, slamming the door so violently that the glass vase on the table shattered into pieces. I sank onto the floor, clutching the letter against my chest, my tears falling uncontrollably. Everything I thought I knew about myself, about my family, had just been ripped apart in one moment. Why didn't you tell me, Mom? I cried. Why did you let me grow up in this house, treated like nothing, when you knew the truth all along? She knelt beside me, her arms wrapping tightly around me. Because I was afraid, Emily. Afraid of losing you, afraid of destroying the only family we had. I thought I could protect you from the pain. But now it's too late. I pulled away, anger and betrayal flooding my heart. Too late? Mom, I've lived my whole life thinking I was unloved by my own father. Do you know what that did to me? Do you know how many nights I cried myself to sleep because of him? She sobbed harder, her hands covering her face. I felt trapped between two worlds, one where I was the unwanted child of the man I grew up calling father, and another where I belonged to a stranger named Richard, a man I had never met. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the letter still clutched in my hand. My heart was in pieces. Who was Richard? Where was he? Did he even know I existed? But as I lay there drowning in confusion, I made a silent promise to myself, I would find out the truth. I would search for Richard, my real father, no matter what it took. And little did I know, the journey I was about to begin would turn my life upside down in ways I could never have imagined. Because 2 weeks later, I came face to face with someone who claimed to know Richard. And what he revealed left me completely speechless. My name is Emily. I am 21 years old, and I am speaking to you from Texas, USA. Before I continue, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss any of my upcoming interesting stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know. Now, let's continue from where we stopped. 2 weeks after I discovered the letter about Richard being my real father, something unexpected happened. I was walking home from the grocery store one afternoon when a man stopped me on the sidewalk. He was in his mid-40s, tall with tired eyes, and he looked at me with a strange intensity that made my skin prickle. Are you Emily? He asked. I hesitated, clutching the grocery bag tighter. Yes, who are you? He let out a shaky breath, as though he had been searching for me for a long time. My name is Daniel. I was Richard's closest friend. And I've been waiting years to find you. My heart skipped. I froze, my mind spinning. You knew Richard? He nodded. Not only did I know him, but he asked me, if anything ever happened to him, to look for you. I nearly dropped my bag. What do you mean if anything happened? Where is he now? Why hasn't he ever come for me? Daniel's expression darkened, and his eyes softened with pity. Emily. Richard passed away. Years ago. The words hit me like a sledgehammer. My chest tightened, and I staggered back, shaking my head. No, that can't be true. He's my father. I was supposed to meet him. I was supposed to ask him why he left me. Tears filled my eyes, spilling down my cheeks as my voice cracked. Daniel reached out, his hand on my shoulder. I'm sorry, Emily. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear. But Richard loved you more than anything. He never stopped thinking about you. My throat burned. My heart screamed in agony. I had lived my whole life believing I was unwanted, and now that I had finally learned about my real father, it was too late to meet him. He was gone. But Daniel wasn't finished. He lowered his voice and said, Richard left behind something for you. A box. He wanted you to have it when the time was right. I've kept it safe all these years. A spark of hope flickered in me through the pain. A box? What's in it? He looked around nervously, then whispered, I can't explain it all here. Meet me tomorrow evening at the old park near Willow Street. I'll bring it to you there. I swallowed hard, my heart racing. Why not just give it to me now? He shook his head. It's not safe. Too many eyes are watching. Trust me, Emily. Tomorrow. With that, he walked away, leaving me standing on the sidewalk trembling with shock. That night, I told my mother what had happened. Her face went pale, her hands shaking as I described Daniel's words. Emily, she said urgently, be careful. I know Daniel. He was close to Richard, yes, but he was also involved in dangerous things. If he's reaching out to you now, there must be a reason. Fear and curiosity battled inside me. But one thing was clear, I had to see what was in that box. Maybe it held the answers I had been searching for all my life. The next evening, I walked to the park, my heart pounding with every step. The sun was setting, the sky turning orange and purple. I clutched my bag tightly, scanning the area nervously. Then I saw him. Daniel was standing near the old fountain, holding a small wooden box in his hands. As I approached, he gave me a sad smile and said, This belongs to you. I reached out with trembling hands, my fingers brushing against the rough wood. My chest rose and fell quickly as I opened the box. Inside, I found letters, photographs, and a necklace with a small heart-shaped pendant. But at the very bottom of the box was a sealed envelope with my name written on it, in handwriting that was shaky but still strong. It was from Richard. I gasped, clutching the letter to my chest, my tears already flowing. My real father had left me his last words. But just as I was about to open it, a loud voice shouted from behind us, Step away from her, Daniel. I spun around to see my father, James, standing there with fury in his eyes. My name is Emily. I am 21 years old, and I am speaking to you from Texas, USA. Before I continue, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss any of my upcoming interesting stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know. Now, let's continue from where we stopped. Step away from her, Daniel. My father's voice roared across the park like thunder. I froze in shock, clutching the box tightly to my chest. Daniel's eyes widened, but he didn't move. Instead, he gave James a cold stare. You have no right to interfere anymore, James, Daniel said calmly. Emily deserves to know the truth. This box belongs to her. My father's face turned red with fury. His fists clenched at his sides as he stepped closer, his eyes burning into Daniel. You stay away from her. You and Richard caused enough damage already. Don't drag my family into your mess again. I blinked in confusion, my chest pounding. Mess? What are you talking about? What does this have to do with me? Neither of them looked at me. They were locked in a silent battle of hatred, as though the wounds between them had been bleeding for years. Finally, Daniel turned to me and said, "Emily, don't listen to him. Your father, Richard, loved you deeply. He wanted you to know who you really are. That letter in your hand will explain everything." But James stepped forward and shouted, "Don't you dare read that letter. He's only trying to poison your mind. Everything Richard left behind is a lie." My hand shook as I held the envelope. The weight of it felt heavier than stone. My mind spun between the two men, one who had raised me with coldness, and another who claimed to know the truth about the man who gave me life. "Tell me the truth," I cried, my voice breaking. "What are you both hiding from me? Why do you want to keep me from reading this letter?" James grabbed my arm, his grip tight. "Emily, listen to me. That man is dangerous. He and Richard were involved in things you don't understand. If you open that letter, you'll only bring more pain into your life." Daniel stepped closer, his voice firm. "She deserves to know the truth, James. Stop trying to control her with your lies. You never wanted her, and now you want to rob her of the only connection she has left to her real father?" My father's grip tightened, and his face twisted with rage. "Don't you dare speak like you know what's best for her. I raised her. I kept a roof over her head when her so-called real father abandoned her. What did Richard ever do for her? Nothing." I pulled my arm free, tears blurring my vision. "Enough. Both of you." My voice cracked with pain. All I've ever wanted was love and the truth. If Richard was my father, I deserved to know who he was. And if you raised me, James, then why did you hate me so much? Silence hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Both men looked at me, but neither spoke. My chest heaved as I clutched the letter tighter. "Emily," Daniel finally said softly, "read it. Only Richard's words can give you the answers you're searching for." But before I could tear the envelope open, James snatched it from my hand. "No!" I screamed, trying to grab it back. But he shoved me aside and stuffed the letter into his pocket. "You will not read this," James growled. "Not now. Not ever." Daniel's face darkened. His voice dropped, cold and sharp. "James, if you destroy that letter, you'll regret it. Richard trusted me to protect it for her. Don't push me." I stood frozen, tears rolling down my cheeks, my body trembling. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, two men fighting over the last words of the father I never met, while I stood in the middle, broken and helpless. And then, suddenly, James pulled a lighter from his pocket. With one flick, a small flame appeared. He held the envelope dangerously close to it. "No!" I screamed. "Don't do it." But his eyes were filled with rage, and his hand began to lower the letter toward the fire. "My name is Emily. I am 21 years old, and I am speaking to you from Texas, USA. Before I continue, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss any of my upcoming interesting stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know. Now, let's continue from where we stopped. The flame from my father's lighter flickered dangerously close to the letter. My heart felt like it would burst out of my chest. That envelope was the only connection I had left to Richard, the only chance I had to hear his voice, even if just through words. "Dad, please." I screamed, my hands shaking as I reached toward him. "Don't take this from me too. Haven't you taken enough already?" For a moment, his eyes flickered with something, hesitation, maybe even guilt. But just as quickly, his face hardened again. "You don't need to know what's inside," he growled. "It will only destroy you." "No," I sobbed, my voice raw. "What destroyed me was growing up in this house, feeling unwanted every single day. That letter is all I have. If you burn it, I'll never forgive you." Daniel stepped forward, his voice steady but sharp. James, don't be a fool. That letter isn't just paper, it's Richard's last words to his daughter. If you destroy it, you'll prove everything Emily has felt about you is true. The flame hovered closer, and for a second, I thought it was over. My chest tightened, my knees buckled, and my tears blurred the scene before me. Then something inside me snapped. With all the strength I had, I lunged forward and slapped the lighter out of his hand. The flame died instantly as the metal hit the ground and skidded across the pavement. Emily! James barked in shock. But before he could react, I shoved him with everything inside me. You will not take this from me. I screamed, my voice trembling but fierce. He stumbled back a step, stunned. For once, he didn't have a quick reply. He just stared at me, his chest heaving, his face pale with rage. I snatched the letter from his pocket, clutching it tightly to my chest. My hands shook, my heart pounded, but for the first time in my life, I felt powerful. This is mine, I said firmly through tears. Richard was my father, and I have the right to know what he wanted to tell me. Silence fell. My father's jaw tightened as though he wanted to argue, but he couldn't find the words. Daniel stood nearby, his eyes locked on James, ready to step in if needed. Finally, James muttered, his voice low and bitter, "Fine. But don't come crying to me when you regret it." With that, he turned and stormed away, disappearing into the shadows of the park. My whole body trembled as I collapsed onto the fountain's edge, clutching the letter. Tears streamed down my face, my chest rising and falling in uneven breaths. Daniel sat beside me quietly. "Emily," he said softly, "are you ready to open it?" I nodded slowly, wiping my face with the back of my hand. With trembling fingers, I tore the envelope open and unfolded the paper inside. My eyes scanned the words, my heart breaking with every sentence. My dearest Emily. If you are reading this, then I am no longer here to hold you, but I want you to know, you were never unwanted. You are my greatest gift, the light of my life. Circumstances forced me away, but not a single day passed when I didn't think of you. Always remember, you are stronger than you think, and one day, the truth will set you free. My tears fell onto the page, smudging the ink. My hand shook as I clutched it tighter. For the first time in my life, I felt the love of a father. But then, at the bottom of the letter, I saw something that made my breath stop. A warning. Emily, if you ever seek the full truth, beware of James. He is not who you think he is. He carries secrets darker than you can imagine. Trust no one blindly, not even him. I gasped, my heart racing. My eyes darted to Daniel. What does this mean? What secrets was he talking about? Daniel's expression grew dark. He looked me straight in the eye and whispered, "Emily, there's something about James you don't know. Something that could change everything." Before I could ask, he leaned closer and said the words that nearly stopped my heart. "My name is Emily. I am 21 years old, and I am speaking to you from Texas, USA. Before I continue, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss any of my upcoming interesting stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know." Now, let's continue from where we stopped. Daniel's eyes locked on mine, his voice dropping so low I almost couldn't hear him. "Emily. James wasn't just cruel to you because you weren't his blood. He hated you because your existence exposed his own secret. A secret he has hidden from everyone for years." My chest tightened. "What secret?" Daniel took a deep breath. "James was the reason Richard disappeared from your life. He made sure of it. And worse. James wasn't just your mother's husband. He was Richard's greatest enemy." My head spun, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Enemy? What are you saying? Why would James hate Richard so much?" Daniel looked down at his hands, his jaw clenched. "Because Richard and your mother loved each other long before James came into the picture. James always knew. He took your mother away, and when you were born, he knew you weren't his. That's why he could never accept you. You were living proof of her love for another man. I felt the ground slip beneath me. My mind screamed, refusing to believe it. But deep inside, it made a painful kind of sense. No, no, that can't be true, I whispered, tears filling my eyes. My mother married James before I was born. Daniel shook his head. Not exactly. You were already in her womb when she married him. And James knew it. He's known all along. My breath caught in my throat. My chest ached as though someone had stabbed me. All those years of cold stares, cruel words, rejection, it was never about me as a person. It was about the truth he couldn't erase. I wasn't his. I covered my mouth with trembling hands as fresh tears fell. So, all this time, he hated me because I reminded him of Richard? Yes, Daniel said softly. And because of that hate, he made sure Richard was cut out of your life forever. My body shook with anger and grief. What do you mean? What did he do to Richard? Daniel hesitated, his eyes darting away. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, finally, he whispered, Richard's death wasn't an accident, Emily. James had a hand in it. The words sliced through me like fire. My stomach turned, and my knees nearly gave out. I staggered back, clutching the fountain for support. No, no, that can't be true. You're lying. Daniel's eyes filled with sorrow. I wish I was. But I was there, Emily. I saw what happened. James wanted Richard gone because he knew one day you'd discover the truth. He couldn't stand the thought of losing control. My tears came hot and heavy, blinding me. My mind screamed in denial, but deep inside, something told me Daniel was telling the truth. The words from Richard's letter echoed in my head, beware of James. He is not who you think he is. I pressed the letter against my chest, my heart breaking into pieces. My father, the man who raised me, who should have protected me, was the reason I grew up fatherless. But before I could say another word, a voice cut through the silence. Well, James said coldly from the shadows, his silhouette stepping into the glow of the park's lamplight. His eyes were like burning coals. So, Daniel finally decided to poison her with his lies. I gasped, spinning toward him. My body froze as his steps grew louder. Emily, James said, his tone dark and mocking, don't you see? He's manipulating you. He's always been jealous of me, and now he's using you to get revenge. Daniel stood in front of me protectively. She deserves to know the truth, James. You can't hide it forever. James's jaw tightened, his voice rising. The truth? You wouldn't know the truth if it bit you. Everything Richard told you was twisted. He was the liar, not me. I stood trembling between them, my heart splitting in two. Who was telling the truth? Daniel, with his painful revelations? Or James, with his furious denial? I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But before I could move, James reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out something that made my blood run cold. My name is Emily. I am 21 years old, and I am speaking to you from Texas, USA. Before I continue, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss any of my upcoming interesting stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know. Now, let's continue from where we stopped. James's hand moved slowly out of his jacket pocket, and in it was a black revolver. My whole body froze. The cold metal caught the park light, sending a shiver straight through my bones. Daniel instinctively stepped in front of me, spreading his arms wide as though to shield me from the danger. James, don't do this. Don't make this worse than it already is. James's face twisted into something cruel, almost unrecognizable. His voice came out low, shaking with rage. She was never supposed to know, Daniel. Never. I gave her food, shelter, everything she needed, and this is how she repays me? By running into the arms of a ghost? Tears stung my eyes as my knees wobbled. My voice cracked. A ghost? You mean my real father? The one you took from me? James's eyes flickered with something, a mix of guilt and anger, but it vanished in an instant. He pointed the gun straight at Daniel. You've said too much already, James hissed. You've been meddling in my family's life for years, and now you think you can steal her away from me? No. I won't allow it. Daniel raised his hand slowly, his voice calm but firm. James, listen to yourself. She's not your possession. She's your daughter, even if not by blood. Why can't you let her have the truth? Are you so afraid of her hating you that you'd rather destroy everything? James's jaw tightened, his finger twitching against the trigger. She already hates me. What difference would the truth make? My heart raced as I cried out, stop. Please, both of you, stop this. My hands trembled as I stepped forward. James, if you ever cared for me, even a little, then don't do this. Put the gun down. For a moment, his eyes softened. I thought maybe, just maybe, he would listen. But then his face hardened again, as though my words only fueled his rage. Emily, he said coldly, you think you want the truth. But once you know everything, you'll wish you never asked. That letter is only the beginning. Richard wasn't the saint you imagine. He was dangerous, and so is Daniel. I've been protecting you all these years. And you're too blind to see it. I shook my head fiercely, my tears streaming down. No. You weren't protecting me, you were punishing me. You hated me because I reminded you of him. You made me feel worthless my whole life. James's eyes narrowed, his face trembling with fury. For the first time, I saw something crack in him, his pride, his mask, his control. And then, without warning, he lunged forward, grabbing my arm and yanking me away from Daniel. Let me go. I screamed, fighting against his iron grip. Daniel rushed forward, shouting, James, stop. But James pressed the cold barrel of the gun against my temple, and the world seemed to stop. Take one more step, James growled at Daniel, and she'll never find out anything. Daniel froze, his fists clenched at his sides, his eyes burning with desperation. James, don't. This isn't the way. My breath came in sharp gasps, my body trembling violently. I could feel the metal against my skin, the weight of death so close. Emily, James whispered harshly into my ear, you don't understand. Everything I did to protect you. But if you keep chasing the truth, it will destroy you, just like it destroyed your mother. His words cut deeper than the gun pressing into me. My body stiffened. My mother? I gasped. He smirked bitterly, tightening his grip. You think her death was an accident too? You're so naive. Daniel's face paled, his voice urgent. James, don't you dare. But James cut him off with a twisted smile. Tell her, Daniel. Tell her how her mother really died. Or should I? My heart stopped. My entire world tilted on its axis. And then, before anyone could move, James pulled the hammer back on the revolver. The clicking sound echoed like thunder in the night. My name is Emily. I am 21 years old, and I am speaking to you from Texas, USA. Before I continue, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss any of my upcoming interesting stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know. Now, let's continue from where we stopped. The sound of the revolver's hammer cocking froze the blood in my veins. My chest heaved as James pressed the gun harder against my temple. Daniel stood frozen a few feet away, sweat dripping down his forehead, his eyes locked on the weapon. James, Daniel said in a low, steady voice, don't do this. She's innocent. If you pull that trigger, you'll destroy the last thing left of her mother. Is that what you want? James's lips curled into a bitter sneer. Innocent? You think she's innocent? No, she carries his blood. She carries the same blood that ruined everything I ever wanted. Tears blurred my vision. My voice shook as I whispered, "What do you mean? What did Richard do to you?" James's grip tightened around my arm. His voice turned sharp and venomous. "Richard didn't just steal your mother from me. He exposed me. He knew secrets about me, things that could destroy me if anyone found out. So yes, Emily, I hated him. And I hated you because every time I looked at you, I saw him staring back at me." My stomach twisted, my throat closing up. "And my mother?" I asked softly, barely able to speak. "What happened to her? Tell me the truth." For the first time, James's face wavered. His eyes flickered with something dark, something haunted. Then, in a voice that made my knees weaken, he said, "Your mother didn't fall down the stairs, Emily. I pushed her." The words pierced my soul like knives. My knees buckled, and my breath caught in my throat. My whole body went cold. Daniel's eyes widened in shock. "You monster," he whispered. James's voice grew harsh, almost like he wanted me to feel his cruelty. "She was going to leave me. She said she was taking you and going back to Richard. I couldn't let that happen. So yes, I pushed her. And when she lay there dying, I told the police she tripped. No one ever questioned it." I screamed, thrashing against his grip, my heart shattering into pieces. "You killed her. You killed my mother." His jaw tightened, his voice shaking. "I did what I had to do. She betrayed me. And Richard betrayed me. You were the result of their betrayal." Daniel stepped forward, his voice trembling with fury. "James, let her go right now, or so help me, I'll make sure the whole world knows the truth." James laughed bitterly, pressing the gun tighter against my head. "You think anyone will believe you? I buried the truth for years, and I'll bury it again if I have to." I could barely breathe. My tears soaked my cheeks, my body trembling uncontrollably. Every memory of my mother's smile, every moment of her love, shattered in an instant. She hadn't left me. She hadn't abandoned me. She had been murdered by the man who claimed to be my father. "James," I sobbed, my voice breaking, "you've taken everything from me. My mother, my real father, and my childhood. But you will not take my future too. Not tonight." Before he could react, I stomped my foot against his shin with all the strength I had. He shouted in pain, loosening his grip just enough for me to twist free. "Emily, run!" Daniel yelled. I stumbled forward, my heart racing, but James roared with rage. The gun fired. The deafening sound split the night. I froze, my ears ringing. My body shook violently as I looked down. Blood. But it wasn't mine. Daniel collapsed to the ground, clutching his side, his face twisted in pain. "Daniel!" I screamed, rushing to his side. James stood behind us, the gun still smoking in his hand, his face a mask of fury and madness. "You should have stayed away, Daniel," he growled. "Now you'll die just like Richard." I pressed my hands against Daniel's wound, tears pouring down my face. "Stay with me, please. Don't leave me too." Daniel coughed, his voice weak but firm. "Emily, don't let him win. You're stronger than he thinks. Fight for the truth." James stepped closer, raising the gun again. His shadow loomed over us like death itself. And just as his finger tightened on the trigger, red and blue lights flashed across the park. The sound of sirens filled the air. "My name is Emily. I am 21 years old, and I am speaking to you from Texas, USA. Before I continue, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss any of my upcoming interesting stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know. Now, let's continue from where we stopped. The flashing red and blue lights cut through the darkness, spilling across the park like a flood of hope. The sound of tires screeching and doors slamming echoed in my ears. For the first time that night, James's hand trembled. The revolver hovered in the air, his eyes darting toward the flashing lights. James, a police officer's voice boomed through a megaphone. Drop the weapon. Now. James's jaw clenched tight, his eyes wild as he looked down at me and Daniel. His breathing was heavy, uneven, almost animal-like. No, you called them? You think they'll save you? I didn't. I cried, still pressing my hands against Daniel's bleeding side. I didn't call anyone. But in that moment, I realized, someone must have heard the gunshot. Maybe a neighbor. Maybe a passerby. Maybe fate itself had finally stepped in. James backed away a few steps, waving the gun wildly as the officers moved closer, their own weapons drawn. Drop it, James, one of them shouted. Put the gun down and step away from the girl. For a second, I saw something in his eyes I had never seen before, fear. Pure, raw fear. But just as quickly, it turned back to rage. His voice cracked as he shouted, "You don't understand. She's mine. She's all I have left, and I won't let you take her from me." Daniel groaned beside me, his face pale, his blood soaking through my fingers. "Emily, don't let him break you," he whispered weakly. My heart pounded as I looked between James and the police. My tears fell harder, my voice trembling. "James, please, stop this before it's too late. If you ever loved my mother, even for a moment, then let me live. Let her memory live in me." For a split second, his face cracked. His eyes glistened, and I saw the broken man underneath, the man who had once loved my mother so much that losing her drove him to madness. But then his rage returned, twisting his face into something monstrous. He raised the gun again, not at me this time, but at the officers. "No!" I screamed. Before I could move, the sound of multiple gunshots exploded into the air. Bang! 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 James's body jerked violently as the bullets tore through him. His gun slipped from his hand, clattering to the ground. He staggered back, his eyes wide in disbelief, before collapsing onto the cold grass. I stared at him in shock. The man who had haunted my childhood, the man who had stolen my mother from me, now lay lifeless before my eyes. The officers rushed forward, one of them shouting into his radio for an ambulance. Two of them pulled me back gently as paramedics swarmed Daniel's side. "Stay with him, please." I begged through sobs, clutching at Daniel's hand as they lifted him onto a stretcher. His blood smeared my fingers, his grip weak but steady. "I'm not leaving you, Emily," he whispered faintly. "Not until you know everything." The paramedics pushed him toward the waiting ambulance. I tried to follow, but an officer stopped me. "Miss, you need to be checked too. You've been through a lot tonight." I shook my head, my chest heaving. My eyes locked on Daniel as the doors of the ambulance closed. I felt my whole world tipping again, like I was being pulled into a storm I couldn't escape. James was dead. But his secrets weren't. And Daniel, my only link to the truth, was fighting for his life. As the sirens wailed and the ambulance sped away, I dropped to my knees on the wet grass, my tears falling like rain. Everything I thought I knew about my family had been shattered. But I also knew this was not the end. Because Richard's words in that letter still echoed in my mind, "The truth is bigger than James. Beware of those who come after him." And deep inside, I realized James's death wasn't the end of the nightmare. It was only the beginning. My name is Emily. I am 21 years old, and I am speaking to you from Texas, USA. Before I continue, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss any of my upcoming interesting stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know. Now, let's continue from where we stopped. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and fear. My hands still shook as I sat in the waiting room, my clothes stained with Daniel's blood. Every second felt like an hour, every sound of footsteps in the hallway made my heart leap. When the doctor finally came out, I jumped to my feet. "Please, tell me he's alive," I begged, my voice cracking. The doctor's face was grave but steady. "He lost a lot of blood. But he's strong. We've stabilized him for now. He needs rest, but you can see him briefly. Relief hit me so hard my knees almost gave way. I followed the nurse down the hallway, my hands clenched tightly together. When I entered the room, Daniel lay pale and weak against the sheets, tubes, and wires connected to his body. But when he saw me, he gave a faint smile. "You made it," he whispered hoarsely. Tears spilled from my eyes as I sat by his side, clutching his hand. "You saved me, Daniel. You almost died for me." He shook his head slowly. "Emily. I couldn't let him take you too. You're stronger than you know. And you need to hear the rest, before it's too late." I frowned, my voice soft. "The rest?" "James is gone." "What else could there be?" Daniel's eyes darkened. Richard's warning in the letter, it wasn't just about James. "There are others." "Emily. People Richard was trying to protect you from. Powerful people who didn't want you to ever know the truth about your family." My chest tightened, my pulse racing again. "Others? Who are they?" Daniel swallowed hard, his grip weak but firm. "Richard, your real father, wasn't just any man. He was involved in things far bigger than you can imagine. Things that James stumbled into, and tried to use against him. That's why your life was never safe, Emily. That's why your mother tried to leave. She knew what was coming." My whole body trembled. What was coming? Before Daniel could answer, the door creaked open. A woman in a sharp black suit stepped inside, her heels clicking softly against the floor. Her face was calm, too calm, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Emily," she said smoothly, her voice like silk hiding a blade. "I'm so glad you're safe." I blinked in confusion. "Who are you?" She smiled wider. "My name is Victoria. I worked with your father, Richard. And now, I've come to take care of you." Daniel's eyes shot open wide. His voice broke into a desperate rasp. "Emily, don't, trust her." Victoria tilted her head, her smile never fading. She walked closer, her eyes fixed on me like a predator sizing up prey. And in that moment, I realized Richard's warning was real. James's death had only removed the first obstacle. There were more shadows waiting for me, and one of them had just walked into the room. I gripped Daniel's hand tighter as my heart thundered in my chest. Because something told me Victoria wasn't here to protect me. She was here to finish what James had started. "My name is Emily. I am 21 years old, and I am speaking to you from Texas, USA. Before I continue, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss any of my upcoming interesting stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know. Now, let's end this story." Victoria's presence filled the room like a shadow swallowing light. Her sharp suit, her calm smile, the way her eyes never blinked, it all made my skin crawl. "Emily," she said softly, as though speaking to a frightened child, "you've been through so much. Your father, Richard, trusted me. He wanted me to guide you when the time came." Her words were honey, but her eyes were knives. I swallowed hard, clutching Daniel's weak hand. "Guide me? Or control me?" Daniel coughed, his voice hoarse but urgent. "She's lying, Emily. Richard never trusted her. She was the reason he was hunted. She's dangerous." Victoria's smile widened, but her tone remained smooth. "Daniel, you always were dramatic. You never understood the bigger picture. Richard had enemies everywhere. I was the only one keeping him alive as long as he survived. And now, Emily, I can keep you safe too, if you come with me." Safe. The word echoed in my head like a cruel joke. I thought of James, of how he claimed he was protecting me while crushing me under his hate. I thought of my mother, who had died trying to keep me out of danger. And now this stranger wanted me to believe the same lie? I rose slowly from my chair, my fists clenched. My voice trembled, but it carried strength I didn't know I had. You're not here to protect me. You're here to control me, just like James. But I won't let you. Not anymore. Victoria tilted her head, her calm expression finally cracking. Careful, Emily. You don't know who you're dealing with. I can make your life very difficult. I stepped closer, my tears burning hot against my cheeks. My life has already been difficult. My father was murdered. My mother was killed. I grew up hated in my own home. And yet, I'm still standing. You can't take anything from me anymore. For the first time, Victoria's smile disappeared. Her eyes hardened, cold and dangerous. You're stronger than I expected. That may be a problem. Daniel forced himself upright despite his pain. His voice, weak but steady, cut through the tension. If you touch her, Victoria, I swear, the truth Richard left behind will come out. Everything. Every file, every recording. The world will know who you really are. Victoria's eyes narrowed. She stared at me for a long, suffocating moment before finally stepping back toward the door. Her calm mask slid back into place. This isn't over, Emily, she said quietly. You are your father's daughter. And that means you're part of a game much larger than you realize. And then she was gone. The room felt lighter, but my heart still raced. I sank back into the chair beside Daniel, gripping his hand tightly. She's not finished, I whispered. Daniel nodded weakly. No. But neither are you. Richard believed in you. He left his truth in you, not just in letters, not just in words, but in your spirit. Don't ever forget that. I wiped my tears, a new fire burning in my chest. For the first time, I felt more than pain. I felt strength. James was gone. Victoria had revealed herself. The shadows of my family's past were dark, but I was no longer the scared girl living under someone else's hate. I was Emily. Richard's daughter. My mother's child. And I had survived. As I looked out the hospital window at the rising dawn, I realized the life lesson hidden in my story. Sometimes the people who claim to protect us are the ones who hurt us the most. Sometimes the truth destroys the illusions we cling to. But the truth, no matter how painful, is what sets us free. And I knew one thing with certainty, my fight wasn't just to survive the past. It was to build a future where no one could ever silence me again. So I turned back to the camera of my heart and said, to everyone watching this story, remember, never let someone else decide your worth. Never let hate define your life. You are stronger than you know. And your truth matters. I took a deep breath, closing my eyes. Now tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? Because this is Emily, and this is only the beginning of my story.